Woj, how you doing? Michael, Don, and Peter.
Mike, Don, Pete, how are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, kind of shocking, especially after you signed a guy to a 5-year, $171 million deal. So what changed? Why'd they fall out of love?
Well, I think when they signed Blake Griffin in the summer, listen, what you don't want to do is just lose an asset for nothing and let a guy walk. They were able to do that sign and trade and get a little bit back for Chris Paul. And then when they re-signed Griffin, they thought, and at the same time they went out and did a deal for Danilo Gallinari. They were trying to win, and then the injury started there. And they looked at sort of the pathway to trying to win big with the Clippers and just decided that the best way to do it was not to build around Blake anymore and his contract and certainly the injuries that have come with him throughout his career again this year, and see what they could get on the market. And when they were able to get, two starting players, a first-round pick, and get his contract off, they made the decision to trade him. Now, they thought they would ultimately do DeAndre Jordan, Lou Williams first, but Detroit was aggressive. Detroit wanted to do a deal now. They're very much in a win-now mode, and they may not have gotten as much elsewhere for Blake Griffin than they were able to get with the Pistons, so they changed course.
What does this do to the Clippers? I mean, that's a major star that's now out of L.A. Rumors that LeBron's going to go to the Lakers. Is this going to, knock the Clippers back to the San Diego days again?
No, I think what the Clippers are doing now is financially getting out from under a lot of very big contracts, while at the same time trying to do something they haven't done over the last several years, which is gather draft picks, try to draft well, and bring in young players to start building an infrastructure going forward. Now, what they don't want to do and what they're determined not to do is to kind of rebuild by tanking. They want to stay competitive. You saw them get 2 starting players in the trade yesterday, and this is the hard way to do it in the NBA, which is not bottoming out, but gathering up picks and young players. And now they have Jordan and Lou Williams, who potentially could bring them back, maybe a young player and a first-round pick in Jordan's case, maybe just a pick with Lou Williams. And now all of a sudden you might have 4 first-round picks here, maybe 5 first-round picks in the next couple of years based on gathering those up in trades plus your own picks, and that's a pathway for them to start reshaping the organization. And listen, Golden State's impacted a lot of teams and how they look and build, and like many others, they looked at their core and said, we're not catching the Warriors built this way. Let's reboot it, and that's what they're doing in L.A.
Is Doc Rivers going to be the coach when this gets rebooted next year? Because a lot of people have taken shots at him. There was a tweet yesterday that said, you can trade whoever you want. The problem is Doc Rivers. So is he the coach going forward?
I'm not sure there's many coaches who've done a better job in the league this year with the roster, with the injuries. He's done a tremendous job this year. Now, Doc, the general manager, that was an issue in L.A., and obviously they paid the price for that. But the Clippers still believe he's an elite-level NBA coach, and he's gotten a great deal. This group has played hard for him. There's no question that Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan group didn't work, and the addition of Austin Rivers to that organization complicated things. But if you're just talking about Doc's performance as a coach this year, I think it's one of the better jobs being done in the league. Now, whether he wants to stay ultimately for what will be something of a rebuild / transition at the very least. He's got 1 year left on his deal at a really big number next year, I think around $12 million. So we'll see going forward what it's going to be. But I disagree with the premise that that there's just a better coach out there for them, because he's proven through the years to be an elite coach, but trying to do both jobs obviously didn't work.
Is Blake Griffin, which guy is Blake Griffin? Because in one sense, we have the story, the weird story, him getting in the fight with the trainer a couple years, last year. But then you also have the guy who's kind of taken the moral high ground when it comes to the things about Doc Rivers. And he's obviously been there since day one for this team. You end up sort of feeling for him in this situation. How would you describe Blake Griffin, the guy?
Well, listen, I think he's a professional, and I think he'll be a pro going to Detroit here. Not everybody wants to wake up. You've spent your career in L.A. and you're getting shipped out to Detroit, but he's handled it great. He'll be a pro there. Listen, he's been up and down like other. He's not perfect. He can, at times in his career, he could be moody. But I think generally, I think he's a good teammate. And I think Detroit really is depending on him to be a leader there, that they have a young group that, he's got playoff experience that group doesn't have. And he's got, and they need him to be a legit franchise player. They're building that thing around him. They've got a brand-new arena downtown. They need to sell tickets, and Blake in his career has proven to be a ticket seller, because of the way he plays the game. So there's a lot on him in Detroit, and that organization is putting a lot on his acquisition. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Our NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, is our guest. Woj, I've got to ask you, everybody's curious about the Knicks, and people talking about buying or selling, and I kind of laugh selling. They don't have a lot of, high-priced items that are going to bring back first-round draft picks. I don't know if they have any, other than, obviously, Porzingis. You're not going to trade him. What do you think the Knicks do?
They may do some things around the edges here. I agree with you, Mike. I don't know that they have, the assets to go out and I don't think they're looking to make transformative moves. I don't think those deals are available. But, there's role players who may, Courtney Lee may have, there may be some interest in him elsewhere. I think some teams, Hernan Gomez, who had a very good rookie year, has played less this year. There certainly will be interest in him, and whether the Knicks would move on for him this quickly, we'll see. Kyle O'Quinn has value and a decent contract for a big man off your bench. But again, pieces around the edges. And look, trades are hard to do in the NBA, and for all the talk and all the conversations that go on, not many get done. And I think for the Knicks, and no one is looking to give up draft picks for, fairly marginal role players. And so there's always talk, can this guy get us a first? Can this guy get us a second? Very few players can get you a draft pick, especially there's a greater premium on them in the league now. And so, listen, you never know. I know Scott Perry's been on the phones. I know he's talking. If they could, maybe like a young point guard who might be available out there to pair with their young group. But I don't know that there's anything imminent, or I don't know if there's anything obvious for them to go out and do.
As Perry and Mills build to the future, Woj, are they building around Porzingis as the star, or ultimately is Porzingis more viewed as a Robin to an eventual Batman they're going to have to acquire?
No, that's a great question, Don, and I think they have tried to figure that out. And I think, listen, you can Porzingis be your best player? I do, on a really well-balanced team. I think he is special. I think he's got a tremendous will. He wants to be great. He's about all the right things. Of course you want to go out and find great talent to surround him with. But I think it's for them, they want to try again to make New York a destination place for free agents. And I think Porzingis is the kind of guy that players will want to play with. He's a great partner for somebody. But then you have to earn your way into those free agent meetings. You have to show a level of competency as an organization from your coaching staff, front office, with the core players you have, to get the really great free agents. They're not just showing up in New York or L.A. or Chicago because of your city, your market. We've seen over the last decade that hasn't worked in free agency. So all those things have to be in place before New York can start to command the respect of the great free agents. And that doesn't happen in a year, and it doesn't happen in 2 years. It's a long process, and the Knicks have had stops and starts on that, and now they start trying to do that again.
John Wall's going to be out 2 months after his injury. Does that impact the trade market at all?
In talking to people around there today, I think if they could get at a backup point guard, something marginal in cost, that would interest the Wizards, but they're not going to give up, kind of some wholesale assets here going forward to try to bridge a couple-month gap. It might be a little short-sighted for them, but I think, if there's a third-string guy available, but I don't think you're going to see a dramatic move by them. They don't have a lot of great trade pieces in Washington to go out and do big things. They're a little bit landlocked with that roster and some of the salaries they have.
All right, final thing before we let you go, Woj, and we appreciate you coming on. What's the deal in Cleveland? Will they make moves, or are they going to stand pat and hope that they could beat the Celtics so they could get slapped around by Golden State?
Well, I think Cleveland's going to have a hard time. Again, they don't have players, assets that are really attractive to people. They have a lot of contracts that people don't want to take on, and they have that Brooklyn Nets pick, which they are very apprehensive about moving because they don't know LeBron James' future. If LeBron had said, I'm coming back, I'm all in, then I think they would look differently at moving that pick. But that's an insurance policy for them in the case of them having to rebuild. And they're not one player. With what's going on in Cleveland and the disconnect among that group, they're not one player away from anything there. And I think it would be fool's gold to go mortgage their future for a player who probably almost assuredly is not putting them over the top anyway.
I said that was the last one. This is the last one. Jeff Hornacek, coaching for his job?
I think like 80% of the league is always coaching for their job. But I think because Scott Perry didn't hire Jeff Hornacek, he came in, inherited him. You know how that is. You're not always as invested in the guy that you didn't hire.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to prove to management that he's the right guy to build off, to build their program around going forward.
Woj, thanks. We always appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right.
Good catching up. Okay.
All right. Adrian Wojnarowski.